tells a very similar story. Yes, we had an escalation in the trade war with China. You know, the president yesterday says, yeah, we're in one now. And obviously Friday escalated things and it caught the market a little bit by surprise, which is why you got the big sell-off that you did. However, imbalance, if you want to look at it that way, remains, according to the retail radar at JPM, robust. Plus $6.5 billion in terms of money coming in versus money coming out from retail. That already exceeds a strong year-to-date average of 6.4 for a couple consecutive weeks. Bill Baruch, to me, you are representative of both of those stats. You're representative of the point of view that I've articulated from the conversations that I've been having. They are representative of what I think we've heard on the desk already. You bought more SPY, okay, playing on the S&P, and you bought more of the IJR, which is the small cap ETF. Tell us more.
Yeah, we de-risked through the middle part of the summer. I thought the run-up was going to meet some seasonal headwinds, was going to meet some jargon around a potential Fed rate cut. And that hasn't happened. We trimmed that ETF basket. It complements our overall main portfolio that I discuss in the single names here all the time. And what I did was just get the rest of that cash to work in that main portfolio. So it represents about 10% of an entire 80-20 or an entire 60-40. So the SPY and the IJR, they sold off pretty sharply on Friday. I was really surprised to not see any follow through to start this week. Response against the 50-day moving average. And then we had Fed Chair Powell on Tuesday, who comes in and talks about an end game to QT. So I think right there you saw the Russell 2000 respond. The IJR is a little more slimmer of an index, and so we leaned into that. Potentially on the week you have a breakout in the small caps, so we'll see how the week finishes. And then as for the S&P, we're talking about valuations at the desk. If you look at relative valuations, which 40% of the S&P is 8 names, if you look at relative valuations, the Mag 7 is right in the middle of the range it's been over the last decade. So I don't think it's overvalued to some regard. But if we respond against the 50-day moving average as we have, and we're going to rally potentially, I want to make sure that ETF slice that we have in these portfolios is now fully allocated.
The no follow through from Friday's deep sell-off immediately reminded me of the guy in Airplane who pulls the plug on the runway lights for a moment, and then he's like, just kidding. and that's why over the weekend you got hey, all will be fine with China, and then the market, that's why the market rebounded on Monday the way it did.
What's so great is we now have these heat checks and these gut check instruments that trade 24/7 in the crypto markets. And it was an absolute slaughterhouse in the crypto markets Friday night into Saturday morning. It's recovered, not all the way since then. But that's where that risk off appetite was being expressed with all of the publicly traded companies closed in the US and Asia, et cetera. They go to the crypto market for liquidity and maybe to get negative on something, maybe to express a bet. That cycle plays out. That used to take a week.
Yeah.
We don't even need the stock market to be open to completely play that whole ballet out. And we're in the third act of the ballet by the time it's Monday morning and Trump is saying, don't worry about China. Yeah. It's amazing, the speed with which we price risk, reprice risk, and then put it back to where it was. And things that used to take a week or a month now only require a couple of hours.
Bitcoin is actually off today, too. Speaking of it, it's back down. Futures are back at 108,000. So we've seen a lot of that recovery on the week now retreat. And just to remind you, too, we still have a lot of cash to get to work. We've trimmed in the main portfolios. I discuss the single names all the time. We have 8.5% to go. And we discussed it in the past. I took a cautious approach. This is just taking that step forward. But again, I am surprised. And crypto did fall out pretty sharply, as Josh talked about.
All right, stocks have continued their slide. As we were just bumping in with the Dow down about 230, the S&P is negative by about 0.5%. Just to keep you up to date here, we're 30 minutes past the hour of noon. Committee moves. I mentioned we have more. You bought TransDigm.
Yeah.
Bill Baruch. Why?
Yeah, well, we have some cash to get to work, and this is a name that we like long term, and it's been under a lot of pressure this year. August report, gap down. We don't have. We own Palantir, we own Leidos. We have some, some exposure, software, slight defense, but aerospace, we haven't had anything. This gets us into aerospace. We think there's good value as we look out 18 months. Multiple is at 31 is a little high, but it's a little lower than where its average is. So we've leaned into it, and it traded down yesterday. We'll continue to watch it. About a 1.5% position brings our 10% cash hoard down to 8.5%.
Okay, let's do this. Newmont and Anglo record highs today. Worth noting as you look at the charts and the nice gains you're seeing. And Bill, you own Newmont.
Yeah, we own Newmont. And I'll say for Ashanti, great regional footprint. A lot of these names obviously run a ton. Newmont's made really timely acquisitions, and a lot of the names, like a Coor, they've made a lot of great acquisitions over the last year, especially in the back end of last year, that have played out to really give them, well-deserved moves this year. What I would say is backing up the truck, just kind of looking at this in general. Not only are gold prices higher, energy prices are lower as well. Their input costs are lower. So these things are going to be free cash flow juggernauts. I think over the long term, I think this is the early stages, maybe the first quarter of a cycle move here. So I think there's a long runway. You still don't need to chase it, but I don't know how much the pullback is going to be.
First quarter, they put up a lot of points in the first quarter. We'll see if they can hold that.
Ideally,
things markets coming up. You want to give me a final?
Yeah, Goldman Sachs. Go to that one.
Okay,
Buy the dip here.
Microsoft.